Hi everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're looking at a 35mm rangefinder. If you know your cameras, then this is Zorki. Not quite sure what this bit up the top says because I don't speak or understand Russian. And this in particular is the Zorki 4K. This was the, I believe, the last model of the Zorki range, although there was a Zorki 5 and 6. Here in the UK, the most popular one that we seem to get was this one, the 4K. This dates from 1975, so I would have been 13 then. These were imported by a firm called Technical and Optical, I believe, in London. I had quite a lot of the Russian stuff. I had the Russian suitcase enlarger as well, and this is one of my little favourite cameras actually. This was the first sort of real proper camera that I ever had, followed by the Fujica ST901, which I think I have shown in another video. But here we take a look at the front. It's a rather beautiful looking camera. You can see the kind of Leica influence in it, that's for sure. Although the 4K is slightly different in that it has a proper winding lever rather than the sort of twirly bit on the top that you have to turn. So let's give you a bit of an overview of the camera. This is fitted with this Jupiter 8 50mm f2. This is pretty much the standard lens for this camera, and this is a 39mm mount, so Leica thread mount is also what it's known as. This is before the Leica bayonet, so there's quite a lot of other lenses that will fit on this camera, both Russian, and these were made just outside Moscow, so this is a genuine Russian camera. I suppose you could also call it a Soviet camera because it was the Soviet Union at the time that it was manufactured. Through to about 1980, I think we said there was 36 that were made in 1980, but they did make a lot of these. So let's have a look at the lens. It has quite a nice coating on it. Being a rangefinder, it doesn't have to just have all this stop-down mechanism that you have on an SLR to keep the viewfinder bright. So there you can see the aperture blades, very nice, although this one has got oil. You can see the dark spots on there. There is oil visible, so that will need sorting out. Again, on the back you can see oil on the blades. This is not a good sign. When you store lenses, you should always store them with the aperture fully closed down like so. Don't store them in that position. Leave them stored in that closed down position. But yes, this has got oil on it. It's very smooth and it probably works. What we don't want is the oil getting onto the lenses where we're going to get haze and such like, although the glass is fairly clear on that one still after all these years. So obviously here's our lens throat. Because it's a rangefinder camera, there's no mirror or anything. You can see the shutter inside. This has got a slightly different sort of ribbed finish on it, the 4Ks. On the front we have a self-timer. Just to set the self-timer, it goes all the way down to the bottom. Push the button, you can hear it, the clockwork. No batteries in this camera, no light meter, nothing's electronic. Got quite a long old delay on it. There we go. The Zorki 4, which this camera's based on, I don't think has a self-timer. I think this is an addition on the 4K as the self-timer. No lug straps, that's part of the case. The case forms that. On the back here, first two digits of the serial number normally give away the year, so this is a 75 model, made in the USSR. Very plain finish. On the bottom, tripod mount, which actually is not far off the centre of the lens, so that's quite good. Nice bit of machining there. And then to remove the back, you've got these pop-out catches, and then you just turn them. Well, I can't remember which way they go. They go the outer way, don't they? Like so. And then the whole back comes off, which was always the fashion in those days. You can see small pressure plate on the back. This is the back of the camera. It's going to focus. You can see there's no real foams on these because it's just the way that the back fits in. It makes it sort of baffled. The 4K has a permanently attached take-up spool, which is multi-slotted. Here you can see the sprocket drive. horizontally running cloth shutter. A lot of people call it the Leica derived shutter. And this is obviously your film rewind lever on this side. It pulls up. It's got nothing to do with opening the back of the camera. Guide rails. Flash sync speed on these I think is a 30th, so it is quite slow. If I remember right, yeah, it looks like a 30th on there. So that's the back of the camera. Before you change the shutter speed on these, which is this dial up here, always make sure that you cock the shutter first and then change the shutter speed. I'll zoom you in a little bit here so you can see in a bit more detail. So we've got a frame counter on this side, so every time we wind on. This is the shutter release button here, and you'll notice there's a red dot, a black dot and a black dot. Always make sure that these are in line before you take the picture, before you actually fire the shutter. You can cause damage if they're not in line. And this is a warning that appears in the back of the Ever Ready case. I'll show you here, this is the Ever Ready case. And it says in here, it says wind shutter before setting speed. And it says 3 dots on release. Unit must be in line before winding the shutter. And there's a second one there, which I can't really understand what that says because it's a bit faded. But yeah, my advice to all Russian cameras is to wind them on before you adjust the shutter speed. And on these also make sure that these 3 are in line before you wind it on. And then you set the shutter speed by lifting this dial up and turning it. So you have 1,000, 500th, 250th, 125th, a 60th, and then you have the slow speeds, which on this one are pretty faint. You have a B setting, oops, you have a 30th, and then there is some slow speeds down here. So I would imagine that there's probably, it says a 15th, an 8th, a quarter and a half. But to change the shutter speed, you lift this dial up, turn it around, and then allow it to drop back down onto the shutter speed that you want. And there's B. And then it can also turn the other way to give you the slower shutter speeds. And to activate the shutter, it's a nice sound. Wind on. So yeah, always wind on before you change the shutter speeds. Cold shoe, the rewind, and this lever here is a dioptric adjustment, which is great. It's what I love about this camera because I don't need to wear my glasses to use it, and I don't need any special screw-in dioptric adjusters or anything for it. So this is a really handy little feature on this camera. Lovely little cameras actually. On the front here you can see there's the viewfinder and there's the rangefinder. It's not quite as long throw as the Kievs, which I think I've also featured on this channel. Flash sync connection here. So quite a simple camera really. To mount a lens on it, these are screw threaded lenses, so as you can see if the camera will focus, it just has a screw thread on the back of it, so it's best to wind it in the opposite direction until you feel it take hold. And then, oop. He says, you can see why bayonets became popular. Still haven't got it on there. You get the idea. This is the bit that adjusts the rangefinder here. Line it up. You can see that this is the aperture ring, oops, on the outside, so it goes from f2 down to it says f22 there, but the line seems to be the f16 is actually the one to the left of it, so that's actually f22 on there. there isn't a depth of field scale on the lens. And then this is, yes, there is, there's a depth of field scale here, so there's infinity. So if you put that infinity, say about f11, and everything from sort of 2.5 meters through, that would be in focus. And focus is down to just under 1 meter, so that's usual for a rangefinder, about 3 feet. But obviously it's a rangefinder camera, it's the join the two images together. I don't know if you can see the rangefinder through the viewfinder. Yes, you can. It's quite a bright rangefinder, actually. It's quite a pleasurable camera to use. I find it very easy to focus. There are other lenses, and you'd focus those lenses in the same way, and then you use a clip-on finder for the composition. Right, let's show you how to pop some film in it. So over here, quite collectible. There is Zorki 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And they are quite collectible now. And they were always, the joke was that they were very cheap and they were poorly made cameras. That isn't really true. It's like everything, you get good ones and bad ones, and it also depends a lot on how they've been treated over their lifetime. So there we go, that's the film loaded. So as you can see, it's been taken up on the take-up spool. Goes through there. Once we're happy that it's on the take-up spool, the back just slots on. Like so. And we can just lock it into place. And then, as always, we rewind the film to make sure that it is wound. There we go. Let's change the shutter speed up to something a bit more reasonable. What's that going to be? That's 250. That's 125. And you can see the film going through. I'm going to set the frame counter back to 0. So when I wind it on, the frame counter is now showing 1, so that's correct. So that's it, ready for the first exposure. That can go back down. And there we have it, folks. That's the camera for today. Let me zoom out again. That's a bit too close, isn't it? Push that out of the way. Beautiful looking cameras, quite chunky, but they're not overly heavy. Really nice to use. Check your lenses. Make sure there's no oil on the aperture blades like there is on this one. That's not a good sign. And yeah, they're quite portable, but they are quite heavy. They're all metal, all clockwork. Like I say, no batteries, no electronics. You need to use an external meter. I have a quite nice Leningrad 8 meter somewhere kicking about. Where is it? There we go. This is a complementary, so this would go quite well with that. That's a Leningrad 8 handheld exposure meter. This has actually got an incident attachment on the front of it, so you could measure the light falling on something. So you actually point it away from the subject towards where you're taking the picture, or you can take a reflective reading. But yeah, Leningrad 8 meter combined with the Zorki 4K. And that's quite a nice little setup. You can also use an app on your phone or the Sunny 16 rule, depending on how experienced you are. But yeah, there we go, folks. Another 35mm rangefinder. Soviet-produced camera made in Russia, just outside Moscow, dating from 1975, and that is the Zorki 4K. Highly recommended, same as the lenses. This is a clone of a sonar lens, so it is a pretty good performer. And in future videos I'm going to start covering lenses and giving you example photographs shot with these lenses. But yeah, very high quality lenses. The Russian stuff's quite interesting. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Another different sort of camera for you. Comments, questions, queries down below, and Don't forget to like, subscribe and all the usual stuff, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.